During the Sengoku era, Tsugikuni Yoriichi was the greatest demon slayer to have ever lived, and the only swordsman the Demon King Muzan feared. But what if Yoriichi fought in the Taisho era instead, and actually became Tanjiro's father? Today, we'll explore a crazy alternate universe where Yoriichi and Tanjiro become an insanely powerful father-son duo. Now, for our story to begin, we need to understand how removing Yoriichi from the Sengoku era affects the Demon Slayer's history. Now, the core will still exist, as Kibutsuji Muzan's transformation into the king of all demons will still curse the Ubuyashiki family line. In order to lift the curse and clear the family name, the noble family devotes all their resources to creating an elite militia to wipe out all demons. However, the golden era of demon slayers that we hear about in the original timeline doesn't happen in the Sengoku era, and the world doesn't see sun breathing for another 500 years. But does this mean that breathing styles don't exist at all? That certainly isn't the case, because we already know characters who developed unique breathing techniques on their own. Think of Inosuke, for example. He invented beast breathing without a master, simply by learning how to survive in the forest. This means that some demon slayers will develop breathing styles, but none as advanced as the total concentration breathing we see in the series. They will also develop key weapons like Nichirin blades and Wisteria poison, meaning that demon slayers who fight like Shinobu, relying on poison and precision more than power, will actually become more common in our alternate timeline. But we also know that you don't need any of these to kill weaker demons, seeing how both Sanemi and Gyomei managed to kill demons with their bare hands before even learning how to hold a weapon. This means that while the demon slayers will be much weaker, they certainly won't be totally helpless. However, Muzan won't pay too much attention to them, as the swordsmen just aren't capable of posing a threat to even the weakest of the 12 Kizuki. Speaking of the demon moons, another key difference is that Yoriichi's twin, Michikatsu, will not be born in the Sengoku era either, meaning that we probably won't have the upper moon one Kokushibo in this version of events. And now we find ourselves in the Taisho era, where Yoriichi is born about 40 years before the timeline we know of. Just like in the original timeline, Yoriichi is a demon-slaying prodigy, and already has access to the transparent world and selfless state as a child. Since he's born with the Demon Slayer mark, Yoriichi is also more physically powerful than the average person, letting him take on more experienced opponents and beat them with ease. But his greatest fear comes when he invents the sun-breathing style, along with the concept of total concentration breathing. This results in the creation of the 5 fundamental breathing styles, and allows demon slayers to unlock their fullest potential. Kuwajimo Jigoro, Sakonji Orokudaki, and Rengoku Shinjiro fight alongside Yoriichi at first, taking their places among the Hashira as the Thunder, Water, and Flame Pillars respectively. Desperate to keep up with his twin brother, Michikatsu also tries to learn sun breathing, but ends up developing his own style, moon breathing instead. While he never matches Yoriichi's power, Michikatsu quickly becomes the second most powerful demon slayer in the core. Now let's fast forward our story by about 15 years, because most of it follows the original timeline. Jigoro, Orokudaki, and Shinjiro all have retired and been replaced by their successors, while Sanemi and Gyomei join the ranks of the Hashira to complete the 5 fundamental breathing styles. Meanwhile, Michikatsu gives up on trying to match his brother through training alone, and becomes the demon Kokushibo, in hopes of growing exponentially stronger. Yoriichi has his landmark encounter against Muzan and absolutely destroys the Demon King, forcing him to split into hundreds of tiny pieces and go into hiding for over a decade. During this time of relative peace, Yoriichi falls in love with a young girl from a family of coal burners named Kie. In this timeline, instead of marrying Kamado Tanjiro, Kie settles down and raises a family with Yoriichi, who retires to live a peaceful life with his family. While he enjoys this peaceful life, Yoriichi knows that the Demon King won't be gone forever, and he decides to train his eldest son, Tanjiro, to be the successor of the sun-breathing style. Now, in this version of events, Tanjiro's childhood is drastically different. He never has any trouble with demons, as the world's strongest demon slayer is guarding Tanjiro and his siblings 24/7. Because of this, the family is never attacked, and Nezuko remains human. Furthermore, instead of watching his dad perform the Hinokami Kagura, Tanjiro actually learns sun breathing from the source, mastering its forms from early childhood onwards. Tanjiro also learns about demons from a very young age, and is always aware of the dangers that come with nightfall. By the time he turns 13, Yoriichi decides that Tanjiro is ready and sends him off to participate in the final selection. This time, the likes of the Hand Demon are barely enough to make Tanjiro break a sweat, and he actually sets a new record by killing dozens of demons in the course of one night. But this incredible power does not change who Tanjiro really is, a kind and empathetic soul who still believes that even demons deserve a shot at redemption. So how does the story as we know it change after Tanjiro becomes a demon slayer? Nezuko not being a demon changes everything, as he will not run into Tamayo or have any problems with the Hashira at the start of his journey. Instead, the Hashira actually treat him with respect, as he's the successor of the sun-breathing style. However, Tanjiro is not granted a seat among the upper ranks for free, and still has to earn it the hard way. Tanjiro heads out with Inosuke and Zenitsu by his side, just like the original timeline. However, their dynamic is completely different. Zenitsu doesn't have Nezuko to fawn over the entire time, and Inosuke doesn't challenge Tanjiro incessantly, as he senses the gap in their skill levels. However, he always strives to grow stronger, hoping to be tough enough to challenge Tanjiro someday. The Drum Demon doesn't give Tanjiro too much trouble either, and his first real challenge comes against the Lower Moon 5, Rui. The Spider Demon's webs are just complex enough to trip Tanjiro up, and without Nezuko's exploding blood to save him this time, Tanjiro finds himself on the back foot. But once he calms down, Tanjiro is able to compose himself and use the sun-breathing second form, Clear Blue Sky, to cut through Rui's webs and close the distance between himself and the demon. While Tanjiro's new strength is enough for him to cut through Rui's neck and successfully beat the Lower Moon before Giyu gets there, this battle leads to a realization. Tanjiro is nowhere near as strong as he needs to be. Yoriichi had already taught him how the upper moons were ridiculously powerful compared to the lower moons, and how Muzan towered above all of them. If he struggled so much against Rui, there's no way Tanjiro would survive against the likes of Kokushibo, who he'll actually see a bit later on in the story. And while Tanjiro is promoted to the rank of Hashira for single-handedly taking down one of the 12 Kizuki, he's unable to celebrate, thinking only of his own weakness and what it would take to beat Muzan. A couple of years pass, and Tanjiro has grown into a formidable Hashira, but the weight of expectation continues to burden him. The turning point comes when Muzan finally emerges from his decades-long hiding. The Demon King has spent this time not just recovering, but evolving. He's learned from his humiliating defeat at Yoriichi's hands, and sun-breathing alone will not be enough to stop him this time. But what's even worse is that since Nezuko never turned into a demon, they never established a close relationship with Tamayo. This means that while poisons exist, the anti-Muzan drug is nowhere near as powerful as it was in the original timeline. When Nakime's biwa rings across Japan, transporting the Hashira into the Infinity Castle, the Demon Slayers find themselves scattered across a twisted realm. Tanjiro, alongside the Water Hashira Giyu, finds himself in a vast chamber where they face off against Akaza, the Upper Moon 3. The battle is intense, as Akaza's martial arts prowess and regenerative abilities push both Tanjiro and Giyu to their limits. Working together, they manage to defeat Akaza, but both are severely wounded. As they struggle to find the others, they hear the sound of an epic battle echoing through the castle. Meanwhile, in another part of the Infinity Castle, Yoriichi faces his brother Michikatsu, now the demon Kokushibo. The two haven't seen each other since that fateful night many years ago, when Michikatsu chose to become a demon. Years without practice have dulled Yoriichi's skills, while Kokushibo grew exponentially stronger as a demon. Yoriichi's movements, while still incredibly skilled, lacked the overwhelming power they once possessed. However, Kokushibo is still unsure of himself, and fears what his brother might do if he gets an opening. He didn't need to worry too much though, as that moment of self-doubt was all that Yoriichi needed. In a split second, he unleashes the 13th form of sun-breathing, not only beheading Kokushibo, but also landing 11 more deadly slashes that prevent him from regenerating. As the Infinity Castle begins to collapse with Nakime's defeat, Tanjiro finds Yoriichi in the ruins. Despite his injuries, Yoriichi insists on standing with his son for the final confrontation. As they emerge from the castle ruins, they find Muzan waiting, his form more terrifying than ever. The Demon King has absorbed the essence of all the demons he's created over the millennia. Muzan sneers. Perfect. I can end the Tsugikuni bloodline once and for all. The battle is brutal, as every form that Yoriichi and Tanjiro attempt is met with a perfect counter, as if Muzan has spent centuries preparing for this exact moment. However, with the support of the other Hashira, they're able to keep Muzan occupied. He wasn't taking enough damage to die, but he was also too occupied to counterattack or run away. Muzan realizes too late what's happening. He's been preparing to counter sun-breathing as an offensive technique, but the Tsugikuni family transformed it into something entirely different, a beacon that amplifies the power of everyone fighting beside them. As the sun rises over the battlefield, Yoriichi collapses into Tanjiro's arms. The legendary swordsman is finally succumbing to the Demon Slayer Mark's curse, but his face is peaceful. So do you think Yoriichi did a great job as Tanjiro's father? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another awesome Demon Slayer theory.